Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Tuba People TV. Puddles and I are in beautiful Evanston, Illinois, near the campus of Northwestern University and Lake Michigan. Puddles, I know you look a little shiny. I don't know, maybe. How's that? Okay, good. And we're here with Mary Buscanics-Jones. So welcome.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you here.
Thank you.
And I'm just wondering what you can remember, if anything, from your initial studies with Jacobs.
I moved from Pittsburgh to Chicago in '81. I studied with Forrest Stanley, and he was really good with breathing and natural playing. And then when I moved to Chicago because of the Chicago brass scene that was here, and Jacobs was doing a master class. And I was just in the audience, and I asked a question, and he brought me up on stage, which was like so cool. And then he worked with me to try to answer my question, and it was just like connections happening. So I tried to get lessons, and it was difficult. And so finally Charlie said, when to call to reach him. And so then I started scheduling, and I couldn't believe, it was just such excited anticipation every time I would go to that fine arts building. I mean, it was like, because there was just such a treasure chest inside the room, and I would just stand outside the door waiting till, my time to knock and go in. Yeah. And the thing I remember about him initially and the whole time, he was just such a complete person. He was so respectful and intelligent, obviously, but never, I never felt stupid. I never felt inadequate in any way. I always felt empowered, and especially, my age, I've dealt with a lot of male brass players that were not respectful, especially to women.
Right.
And that was never even an issue. I mean, he just was that person who valued other people. So that for me was a huge door opener.
Yeah, that's great.
Learning.
And so once you were in there and you had your horn out, what did you guys work on? What'd you play for him or whatever?
So I've told this story a bunch of times because I share with my students all the time what I've learned. So it's not just like I learned it, it's like something that's being propagated through people who share it, like this, actually. So my favorite story is when I was working on Shostakovitch 5, and I just couldn't connect with it. And so Mr. Jacobs said, just sing it like, I love to play the horn. And he was just so beautiful, such a complete sound, but it wasn't singing voice that he had, but it was a brass voice more. And so that singing, putting those words, especially I love to play the horn, freed me from the constraints of technical, this note, that note, connection, fingerings, and to just play the song. And that I've used millions of times in my own playing and in lessons with kids.
So he had you basically, he sang it for you, and then he probably said something like, imitate me, or sing in your head while you're playing, or something like that.
I think that a lot of the information he gave me was just like, I got it when he sang it. It was like, okay then, and so I understood what he was telling me because the way that he sang it and communicated it gave me that, just sing the song through your horn. And then we probably refined it in the lesson as I was trying to plug in what I intellectually understood.
Did he have, so it sounds like you tend on the Aural learner part of that spectrum, and did he then, do you recall him singing fairly frequently for you in lessons, or was it a regular lesson occurrence, like at least once he would sing for you, or was it?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah, at least once, yes. Because that would communicate. Another one of the exercises was the dee da 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 dee da da da.
Sure.
And I just in the lesson, that was one of those stumbling block lessons where I couldn't. I didn't know I couldn't get what the notes were. I could get the first part of it, but then when it changes toward the end, it was just too much for me. And so then he started using syllables, which is another thing that just yesterday teaching I used with a student, trying to help them understand. It was a straight ahead arpeggio, but then the guy changes instead of the top note to, flat, and then it goes into, I was trying to help this kid understand how the syllables can facilitate, and that's another thing that Jacobs did with me was.
So he was very specific in his instruction in terms of using the syllables?
Yes.
Do you remember what in particular?
Well, he really, really encouraged me to become more able to use them, and in particular in this situation where I couldn't, I could not get the notes that he was trying to have me play in that pattern, which I play all the time now. But it was the last dee da dee da da.
Yeah.
I couldn't access it. And
Did he sing that for you?
Oh yeah, sang it. Yeah, he took me all down the path of, and very patiently. Like I said, I never felt stupid, except in my own, beat yourself up head. But it was, and I love that exercise. I mean, I do it all the time. So.
Yeah, that's. I think in the brass gym, it's called the Beautiful Sound Study. The one that Patrick Sheridan and Sam Palafian put out. The first time I encountered it was in the Howlander Advanced Bend Method book with special studies by Jacobs. Well, that's terrific. And did he have you singing as well?
I'm sure he did. My memory is very forward-looking.
Yeah.
So I'm really in touch with how I use stuff now and stuff that I'm uncovering that I understand. But my specific memories of actual lesson occurrence details are more impressions than actual fact. I know that I sang in the lessons. It's probably part of what I refined in general in my horn playing.
Yeah.
If I can sing it, I can play it.
Right. Mary, I'm wondering if you recall specific ideas about Jacobs talking about the taw and getting air to the lips and blowing from the lips and these kinds of things.
That was a huge part of studying with Stanley. We do these things called the sets, and it's all articulated for the most part. And the scales are diatonic, and you do like an hour and a half of this. And I think that I had gotten tongue-tied without realizing it from doing these sets. Religiously, just trying to get the right notes and tempos and stuff. And so I think that freed me to kind of go from this to just like free air. Now I think of it in terms of like a yellow M&M or like a melty junior mint. That's what I use in lessons, because it's just like it doesn't have those hard bright edges. It's just like you breathe in and you fill that wherever you are with sound, because your air fuels it. And the tongue, everything's just right here, right at your lips, and it doesn't need to be big. And so I've spent a lot of time in clinics that I've taught drawing the picture of the ha. I remember his little tablet, and him drawing the ha and the little dot for the T for the tongue, and that image. I'm probably visual as well as aural. That image always is in my head when I'm having trouble. I'm not a good high range player, but I can fake it okay to get gigs. But that's what the image in my head is when that's not working. Is the difference between like closed down and lots of tongue in the way, and just like being as open as I can be and letting the focus of the note happen. And I feel that was from him.
Yeah, I remember him talking about blowing from the lips. Blow your articulations, don't release them. Blow to the lips, not to the tongue. These types of things.
It's that same freedom. The same freedom of the air is the same freedom, right where the mouthpiece is. The mouthpiece is like the isolator, but your lips can be free to make this sound.
I remember him doing like this, the Sibilant S. Did he do that with you?
Yes, you just reminded me. Yes. He also did that I've done that.
The breath in thirds.
Yeah, where it's in on
yeah.
the thumb and out on the fingers, and
Right.
in on the thumb, and just understanding that, and I can still hear, because he made me so aware of that. I still hear him, his air, when I do it. I try to hear that sound in my own imitation of it, which is cool.
Did he? So yeah. So I remember some of the things with if I was having a particularly hard time, and I remember he would actually come and like get next to my ear and breathe in and say, okay, now just use that, copy that sound.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't telling me what to do with this per se. He might have said use an O vowel or something along those lines, but it was that sound. Copy that sound, like that.
Right.
Does that sound familiar at all to you?
Oh yeah, but it's funny. I don't remember him moving around at all. I remember him sitting basically where you are, and I was sitting next to him. And lots of times when I was listening, my view was of his white shirt, not of the like he didn't. The communication for me was that complete for me, that I didn't. The words melded with the meaning kind of, so I just like understood the meaning, and the sound like of his breath and stuff. It's like he gave me permission to allow myself to be aural, because when you're learning they always give you a hard time about that, because you're supposed to read the notes, don't do it by ear. And it's like, but if your ear works, why wouldn't you use it?
Yeah, and I know he would say things like if you're a baseball player and you want to throw the ball, you just throw it. If you're a kid and you want to climb a tree and you've just seen one of your colleagues, your peers climb a tree, you just copy them. But it's only in music do we start to get under the hood and just try to analyze all the mechanical things that are going on. Just imitate. So and maybe it was maybe he probably didn't get out of his chair. Actually, he probably had me lean over, and he just would do that breathing sound into my ear, and then just say copy it. But,
yeah, it's so cool to listen to you talk, because I don't remember stuff, like I do stuff.
You have impressions.
Yeah. And so when you talked about the throwing the baseball, I totally remember that. I can, I'm in that room again at the Fine Arts Building, and that's kind of cool. It's a neat. It's rich to find out that you still have that. But it's so integrated that it's not a conscious thought anymore. It's just kind of neat.
Yeah, I don't know that I could actually pinpoint a time. I can't pinpoint a time when I really made this shift from being very self-analytical while I was playing, or as Dizzy Gillespie would say, critiquing while creating, something like that, and where I passed the 50% mark and was just creating more than I was paying attention to the critical thoughts, the self-analyzation while I was playing. I don't know where that happened. Certainly I still have some of that myself, where I'm in the moment paying attention. I probably could be doing more, listening to the tube in my mind, but it's kind of a weird thing, because I was there was nothing in my mind at all when I went to see Jacobs, in terms of, let me just clarify that, in terms of sound. There was plenty of other stuff in my mind, but in terms of sound, like I didn't hear sounds or colors or timbres. It was really blank, and I could recall pitch and that sort of thing, but there wasn't any sort of colors. The tuba in the mind was not at all alive. Do you remember when you went to see him? What was the horn in your mind like?
I used to sing, like play guitar and sing. Everybody, when I grew up, thought I was going to go be the next Joni Mitchell, which that was funny. And I just recently put together now that my singing then was just singing and natural, and listening to the sounds. And I played piano for years too, and there's different colors on the piano that you can make for different effects. And I think it's more complicated on the piano because it's just hitting a key, so you really have to have a touch to create those different colors. So I think that I was always thinking about tone color and difference and stuff. but he somehow gave me permission to get out of that get-an-orchestra-job box and graduate to the Let's Make Music.
Oh, that's great.
So
that right there is a golden nugget. That's terrific. And that graduating from the Let's Get an Orchestra-Job box into Let's Make Music box, I mean, that's why I think he was such a well-known teacher, and his schedule was so full, is because people of all backgrounds, or desires to get better and to use their skills musically, it wasn't just about getting an orchestra job, it was just about enjoying playing more. It was, how can I be more expressive? It wasn't an orchestra job factory on the 4th floor of the Fine Arts Building.
Right, exactly. But that permission, I think, was important, because when, I don't know how old you are, but I'm close to your age, probably a bit older. But in that era, it was kind of like if you chose to do, in that post-war parents era, if you chose to do music, you had to make money at it, or you were a failure. And so a lot of the training was to, get a job. And it's interesting to me that as it has morphed into make music, there's way more music happening now. When I listen, I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of people who love the old recordings and stuff, but when I listen to what's going on now, I'm not critical of the digital age. I think that there's just a much more depth of musicality going on, and permission to do so accurately, which is like scary.
It is scary out there. I mean, the level of playing is just off the charts.
But don't you think it's more musical?
There's so much more music out there. I mean, people are just more creative.
Right.
For sure. I think the general approach to making music, I think the skills are generally better, and so that has released people to let their musicianship come out more. Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. Do you remember, we were talking about off camera, talking about playing the mouthpiece. Was it strictly singing, or?
No. I loved. That was another aha moment for me, the mouthpiece. But my stumbling block was that he would play a tuba mouthpiece. He may have, now that I'm thinking about it, he may have actually played a horn mouthpiece at one point. He may have understood that I needed that difference in sound quality. And in a not the first time lesson, once he got a hold of a horn mouthpiece, and I think he did use a horn mouthpiece. So that I could hear that, and I'd forgotten that until just this moment. But I was challenged to understand what it was supposed to sound like. I did not, there's the air in the buzz, and then the focus in the buzz, and like what sounds like a hum, and they're very faceted, buzzes are. And I was challenged to understand where the emphasis of my thinking should be. What am I hearing in my mind to recreate on the mouthpiece? No, I play the mouthpiece every day. All my students play their mouthpiece every lesson. That's how every lesson starts. And I can refine, now that I do understand, it took years to comprehend what I was listening for. And it evolved. It wasn't like I created what I was listening for. It just, as I buzzed the mouthpiece, and which I'm now calling making notes on a small instrument.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Playing the mouthpiece. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I don't want my kids to think of it as buzzing. I want them to play music on notes, and myself too. So it's complete sound. But it evolved as I refined my everything. That sound evolved to a more complete sound. I lost my place. But anyhow, I do it with my students all the time.
Yeah, something that Manny Laureano mentioned in his interview was how Jacobs was the person that introduced the thought into Mr. Laureano's mind about the mouthpiece. It actually is the instrument. And the instrument is just the resonator. It's the amplifier.
Right.
But the mouthpiece really is the instrument. So it's this small, playing the small instrument. I like that, that lingo.
Yeah,
that's good. Because otherwise, it can be really detached psychologically. this is what I do on the mouthpiece and this is what I do on the horn, when really what you do on the mouthpiece is what you want to do on the horn,
Right.
the instrument itself.
Anytime I'm challenged by a passage or when I'm teaching a student we stop and take the mouthpiece out. I play with the brass trio here in Chicago. We do school concerts pretty much. It kind of evolved to that because the guys were too busy to come do other gigs, and I wasn't willing to work hard enough to find them. So we just do these school gigs, which are wonderful. Whenever the world is terrible, I feel good because we play music in Chicago public schools and do our best work. But one of the things we do is buzz our Mary Had a Little Lamb on our mouthpieces, and then we put our horns together and play it. Every single time, the quality of sound is exponential. It's like we start out the program, when we get to that part of it, which is early in the program, it just is so much better. It's really cool.
Oh, that's nice. So you get this increase in quality of sound.
Yeah, and that happens in lessons too.
Yeah.
Anytime we use the mouthpiece in my own playing too.
Yeah, that was the thing for me was in lessons it was hard and I wasn't good at it, but boy, it sure sounded better after I did it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it took me 6 months to
Mm-hmm.
to finally buy in, but once I did, man, I really got better faster.
It was cool though that he did buzz on the tuba mouthpiece. I think he used a clear one too, so that I could see what was happening inside of it. And that sound of the rich, thick buzz, and how he sounded was instrumental, even though he did do a horn mouthpiece at some point to try to help me connect the dots. I still, when I think of buzzing, I hear his, his rich sound that he would get in the mouthpiece.
Yeah, and he would use the ring too. Sometimes in my lessons, I don't know if he had a horn ring handy for you, if he would demonstrate on that at all, or
that I don't, maybe, but I don't really remember.
Went there for that first time. Why'd you go back? What was it that brought you back?
Every time there was so much information in the lesson and so much help, so much accessible change in aspects of my musical pursuit that I just wanted more. I would, go home. I would go out to the car, write down as much as I could remember in the garage, and then work on it. And then I would need to build on that. Probably part of that was the mouthpiece stuff that I was talking about too. I would get to a point where I thought I was on the right track and wanted to be sure that I was.
So you'd go back to sort of spot check that.
Well, and just to see if I had interpreted what was given to me correctly and if I was building in the right direction.
Right. Okay. And he was, sounds like, made the environment in the studio with you very comfortable, and which wasn't always the case for female brass players back in that time period when you would go study with other male brass teachers. So this is probably off topic, but I have this I call it the paranoia school of brass playing, and it's like from the Stokowski and those old orchestras where the conductors had such power. I think that the brass playing was just different because it was that era, and I think that it engendered a kind of hardness approach to music that was about survival and being the best and winning and paranoia and oh my gosh, not about music. And he just didn't have any even hint of that in his. And so for me, that was like what I was looking for from the beginning. I grew up out in the country and didn't know anything about music. I didn't grow up in the music world. So when I started encountering music people, I was like, geez, these guys. Really? And so when I met him, it was like, okay, this guy's for real. This is like a nature man, making music. So it was an affirmation for me. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Wow, that's terrific. Well, I mean, I just this whole idea of singing, putting words to a very difficult lick with, like, an example of Shostakovitch 5, and just getting the focus into the mind and off the technical aspects, and then making the music the thing, not the getting a job.
Mhm.
the thing. You know, the priorities are so important, and something I'll run into with students is, you know, their priorities, they have good priorities, but they're not quite in the right order. And if their priority is to get a job, then that will oftentimes put the priorities that will help them get in that position to get a job be kind of out of whack. You know, because really the priority should be to sound great. That's the priority. And so just making music, you know, getting out of that must get an orchestra job box into a let's make great music, let's sound great box, or world, or meadow, or forest, or city. Existence, right? Is and once you do that, then people will call you. You know, it may not be a symphony orchestra, but you'll get called to, or emailed, or texted, or instant message, or Facebook, or Twittered, or Instagrammed, or Snapchatted, and they'll put money in your Venmo account, whatever that is. I don't know what that is, but anyway, I'm so grateful to have you make the trip down to Lake Geneva. And Puddle says he doesn't know your age, but he thinks you're younger than I am.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so, but thank you very much. I'll take that and run with it.
He also wanted me to present to you with our Thanksgiving this brand new second generation Tuba People TV, tubapeople.com glass.
It looks like it's made for beer.
Or could be ginger beer, or it could be root beer, or water.
Water is probably what will be in it.
Thanks so much, Mary.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to see you. It was great to see you a couple of years ago, and really great to see you again. Thank you again for. We've been trying to arrange this time for a couple of years, basically. So appreciate the persistence and patience with me as I would contact you at various times.
Yeah, absolutely. It was neat to hear your stories too. It really jogged some memories.
Great.
That are probably going to grow into new things.
And now back to you.